It was a cold night in a small country town. The lights of the houses flickered in the distance, trying to warm up the melancholy atmosphere that seemed to envelop the street where Lucas and Laura lived. The modest house reflected the weight of the sadness that hung inside. Lucas, just 8 years old, was sitting on a corner of the small sofa in the living room. His eyes, which once radiated curiosity and life, now remained still and empty, the result of an accident that had robbed him of his sight months ago. Since then, the boy had become introspective and distant, locked in his own world of darkness. Laura, his mother, watched him from afar as he restlessly stirred the hot tea between his hands. The dark circles under her eyes told of sleepless nights and incessant worries about how to reach her son's heart again. The silence between them was interrupted only by the distant sound of a radio playing an old song and the heavy breathing in the room. Suddenly, a soft knock on the door brought them out of their thoughts. It was a strange, rhythmic sound, as if something or someone was trying to attract their attention. Laura hesitated for a moment, thinking it was just the wind, but decided to check. When she opened the door, there he was, a large caramel Labrador. The dog had bright eyes and a friendly stance, as if he knew exactly where he was supposed to be. Laura blinked a few times, confused, as the dog wagged its tail vigorously, leaving small muddy marks on the entrance step. "Mom, what is it?" Lucas asked, his voice low but curious. It was the first time he had spoken in hours. "A dog, Lucas. He's right here at the door," replied Laura, surprised by the sudden visit. The dog gave a little bark, as if it knew it was being watched, and approached Laura. She hesitated for a moment, but when she saw the docility in the animal's eyes, she bent down to stroke him. "Is he big?" asked Lucas, raising his head towards his mother's voice. "Very big, and he has caramel fur. He looks well cared for," Laura replied, still confused, but unable to shake the feeling that this animal was bringing something more than just a visitor. The dog took a step towards the living room, spying on Lucas as if he recognized him. Laura didn't have the heart to push it away. He moved slowly forward until he stopped in front of the boy. The boy held out a timid, hesitant hand in the air. "It's here, Lucas. He wants you to touch him," said Laura, guiding her son's hand to the dog's soft fur. As soon as Lucas' fingers touched the Labrador, something seemed to change. A slight smile formed on the boy's lips, and he began to stroke the animal, feeling its texture, the warm energy that radiated from it. "He's so soft," whispered Lucas, more to himself than to his mother. Laura couldn't believe it. The smile, however brief, lit up her son's face for the first time in months. She held her breath, fearing that any words could break that moment. "I think he wants to stay," said Lucas, his hand still on the dog, as the Labrador lay beside him as if he had found where he belonged. Laura felt her eyes water, not with sadness, but with something that seemed hopeful. She didn't know where the dog had come from or why he had chosen her home, but at that moment, none of that mattered. "Maybe he came for you, Lucas," Laura replied, feeling for the first time that this cold night could bring a new beginning. The sun rose shyly the next morning, its warm colors seeping through the gaps in the living room curtains. The caramel Labrador was already on his feet, walking around the house as if he were an old resident. The sound of his paws resonated softly on the wooden floor, creating a calm melody. Lucas woke up with a smile, something rare these days. Sitting up in his bed, he felt the presence of the dog next to him. The Labrador had carefully climbed up and was now resting his heavy head on his lap, while the boy ran his fingers through his fur. "You're here again, aren't you?" said Lucas, more excited. "I dreamt you were taking me for a run." Laura, who was peering through the ajar door, could hardly believe the scene. Her son was talking enthusiastically, as if the dog's presence had dispelled some of the cloud that had enveloped him. He decided to interrupt gently. "Good morning, Lucas," he said, entering the room. "It seems we have a new friend. Mom, he hasn't left. It's as if he knows I need him." The phrase hit Laura in a way she hadn't expected. The connection between Lucas and the dog was almost instantaneous, something that not even months of therapy had managed to create. The dog raised his head, wagging his tail when he heard Laura's voice, as if to include everyone in the complicity that now seemed to reign in the small room. "Have you given him a name yet?" asked Laura, as she stroked the animal. Lucas thought for a few seconds. "How about Saul, because he makes me feel less in the dark." Laura smiled, touched. It was simple, but loaded with meaning. Later, in the small area outside the house, Lucas was excited to interact even more with the dog. He held up a piece of stick while saying firmly, "Fetch Saul." The Labrador immediately ran after the stick, bringing it back with contagious energy. Lucas burst into laughter, something he seemed to have forgotten since the accident. At every command, Saul obeyed with precision, as if he understood that, for Lucas, this was not just a game, but a way of rediscovering the pleasure of interacting with the world. "He's very clever, Mom," shouted Lucas, as he threw another stick. Laura, who was watching from afar, felt something change inside her. For the first time, she saw the possibility of rebuilding what seemed lost. Saul wasn't just a dog. He brought a kind of silent magic, an unexpected gift that transformed pain into possibilities. That same afternoon, Lucas asked something that Laura hadn't expected to hear so soon. "Mom, can I try riding a bike?" She almost knocked over the glass she was holding. Lucas's bike had been stored in the basement since the accident. He had never even mentioned it since. But before Laura could formulate an answer, Saul was already at Lucas' side, wagging her tail as if she knew exactly what the boy wanted. "Are you sure, my love? Don't you want to wait a little longer?" Laura asked, worried. "I'm not alone now, Mom. Saul will help me." With her heart in her throat, Laura brought the old blue bicycle into the yard. Lucas, with almost reverent care, ran his hand over the handlebars and the seat, feeling the object as if he were rediscovering an old friend. Saul sat next to the boy, his eyes attentive to every movement. With Laura's help, Lucas got on the bike. He held on tightly to the handlebars, while Laura guided him through the first lap. Saul trotted alongside, vigilant, almost like a canine bodyguard. "Faster, Mom?" Lucas asked, smiling, the wind whipping his face. Laura reluctantly increased her pace. Saul sped along, never letting Lucas out of his sight. When Laura let go of the seat for a moment, the boy managed to pedal on his own for a few meters before stopping. He let out a nervous but happy laugh. "I did it! I did it!" he exclaimed. Saul barked loudly, as if celebrating his victory along with him. Laura had to hold back tears as she watched her son move with confidence, something that had seemed impossible until a few days ago. "You're doing great, Lucas. I'm so proud of you," said Laura, kneeling down to hug him. Lucas, still panting, held Saul's collar. "It's because of him, Mom. He gives me courage." That night, as the sun set and the day drew to a close, Laura watched the two of them asleep on the living room carpet. Lucas, with a peaceful smile on his face, and Saul, always by his side, as if they were inseparable parts of the same soul. The days began to follow a different rhythm in Laura and Lucas' home. Saul was more than just a new member of the family. He was the beating heart that rekindled lost hope. His presence transformed the mornings, afternoons, and evenings, as if every moment now had a purpose. Lucas, who used to isolate himself in his dark world, showed clear signs of opening up. It was common to hear him laughing or talking to Saul, sharing secrets and creating commands for the Labrador to learn. The house, once silent and melancholy, came alive with the sounds of the dog's footsteps, occasional barks, and Lucas, laughter echoing off the walls. "Mom, I think I want to go back to school," Lucas said one day, while cuddling Saul on the sofa. Laura, who was in the kitchen, stopped immediately. It was the first time Lucas had talked about it since the accident. She walked into the living room, not hiding the emotion on her face. "Are you sure, my love?" she asked, sitting down next to him. Lucas nodded, a shy smile on his lips. "I want to show my friends how incredible the sun is. And I think I'm ready." Laura hugged him tightly, holding back her tears. She knew that this moment represented a big step in Lucas' recovery. The following night, something happened that further solidified the bond between Sewell and Lucas. The boy woke up screaming in the middle of the night, his body drenched in sweat and his heart racing. It was the same nightmare that had haunted him for months. The car that had gone off the road, the deafening sound of the impact, the darkness that enveloped him. Laura ran to her son's room, but when she got there, she stopped at the door. Sewell was already next to Lucas, his head resting against the boy's chest. Lucas hugged him tightly, as if the dog were his only safe haven in the midst of that emotional storm. "I'm here, Lucas." "It's okay," Laura murmured, trying to comfort him. "He knew, Mom," said Lucas between sobs. "He knew I needed him." Laura remained silent, feeling an inexplicable gratitude for that animal who seemed to understand Lucas in a way that no one else could. As the days went by, Sewell also proved to be a protector for Laura. He accompanied her on her trips to the market and back home. It was as if the dog had taken on the responsibility of looking after the whole family. During one of these outings, while Laura was walking through the streets of the small town with Saul, a neighbor approached her. "That dog is a blessing, Laura. I've never seen Lucas so happy since." The woman hesitated, but finished. "Since the accident?" Laura just smiled. She knew her neighbor was right. One evening, while Lucas was playing with Saul in the living room, Laura decided to take advantage of the moment to have a heart-to-heart talk with her son. She sat down next to him and stroked the dog, who was resting peacefully on the floor. "Lucas, can I ask you something?" Laura said softly. "Of course, Mom," replied the boy, still focused on playing with Saul's ears. "What do you feel when you're with Saul?" she asked. Lucas paused for a moment, thinking, before answering. "I feel that I'm not alone anymore. It's as if he understands everything, even what I don't say. He helps me remember good things, like when Dad was still here." Laura swallowed, feeling the weight of her son's words. The accident that had taken Lucas' sight had also taken Laura's husband. Since then, she had struggled to fill the void that his absence had left. "He's part of our family now, isn't he?" asked Lucas, his voice full of innocence. Laura smiled, stroking her son's hair. "Yes, my love, he is." The relationship between Lucas and Saul grew in intensity every day. The boy began to explore places beyond the backyard, always with Saul by his side. In the local square, Lucas dared to walk alone across the lawn while Saul guided his steps. The confidence the dog gave him allowed him to overcome the limits that his lack of sight had imposed. People in the town noticed the change in Lucas and often praised the bond he had with the dog. Laura, for her part, felt reassured to see her son flourishing again. Even in difficult moments, such as when Lucas remembered his father, Sewell was there, firm, offering unconditional support. That same week, over dinner, Lucas looked at Laura with a twinkle in his eye. "Mom, I think I want to learn how to use a cane. Sewell will help me, I know it." Laura, surprised, could hardly believe her ears. Lucas' decision was more than a desire to adapt. It was a sign that he was ready to face the world again. And at the center of it all was Saul, the link that united mother and son on a journey of overcoming. The Caramel Labrador's impact on the family was undeniable. Not only did he help Lucas face his fears, but he also strengthened Laura, who now felt she no longer had to carry the weight of protecting and guiding her son alone. Saul was more than a dog. He was the force that held them together and made them believe in a better future. The sun was shining softly in the sky when Laura, Lucas, and Saul were out in the yard. Lucas laughed as Saul ran after a ball, bringing it back with precision. This moment of relaxation and joy was interrupted only by the sound of Laura's footsteps sweeping up dry leaves from the sidewalk. The world seemed to be in balance at last. But that balance was about to be upset. The doorbell rang. It was an insistent, almost aggressive sound. Laura put down her broom and went to answer it, while Lucas stayed in the yard, playing with Saul. When she opened the door, she came face to face with a rough-looking man. His eyes squinted and his hands stuffed into the pockets of a threadbare jacket. He exuded impatience, his rigid posture showing that he wasn't there for a friendly encounter. "Are you the owner of this house?" he asked bluntly. "Yes, I am." "Who are you?" Laura answered cautiously. "My name is Claudio. That dog." He pointed to the yard, where Saul was now standing, watching the interaction. "He's mine. He disappeared weeks ago, and now I find him here." Laura felt her heart race. His words echoed like thunder. "It's mine. I'm sorry, but there's been a mistake. That dog came here all by himself. He had no collar or identification. My son took him in, and he became part of our family," Laura replied, keeping her voice steady. Claudio took a step forward, his expression hardening even more. "Look, lady, I don't care how he got here. That dog is mine. I have proof. If you want to avoid trouble, you'd better give him back now." Laura crossed her arms, trying to hide the mixture of fear and indignation that was taking hold of her. "I want to see that evidence, then. I'm not going to hand over an animal that has clearly become attached to my son for no good reason." The man shook his head, clearly irritated, and gave a cold smile. "I will, but just know I'll be back. And if you don't hand over the dog, you can be sure we'll sort it out another way." Saul, who until then had been watching everything from afar, stepped forward, positioning himself between Laura and the man. His eyes were fixed, attentive. He let out a low but firm growl, enough to make Claudio instinctively back away. "He doesn't seem to like me very much," said the man, with a nervous laugh, before turning and leaving. Laura closed the door with trembling hands. It took her a few seconds to process what had just happened. When she turned around, Lucas was standing in the doorway, with a worried expression. "Mom, who was that?" he asked, holding Saul's collar tightly. Laura took a deep breath, trying not to alarm her son. "Just a man who thought Sewell was his. But it's all right. He won't take Sewell away." Lucas knelt down and hugged the dog, his eyes watering. "You can't take him, Mom. He's my friend, my best friend." Laura bent down, putting a hand on her son's shoulder. "I won't let you. I promise no one will keep you apart." That night, Laura could hardly sleep. Her thoughts revolved around the unexpected visit. Who was Claudio anyway? And why had Saul stopped at her door weeks ago? As she stared at her bedroom ceiling, she remembered something a neighbor had once told her. Sometimes dogs know where they need to be, as if they were guided by something greater. She wanted to believe that, but now the fear of losing Saul dominated her thoughts. A few days later, Claudio returned. This time, he brought with him a worn collar and a black and white photo of a Labrador that did indeed look a lot like Saul. Laura, however, didn't give in. "This photo doesn't prove that it's the same dog. What's more, there is no mark, chip, or document linking you to him. Saul chose our family," said Laura firmly. Claudio smiled again, but there was something sinister in his expression. "It's not over yet, ma'am. And the next time I come back, the conversation may not be so civilized." Laura watched him go, but felt a shiver run down her spine. When she went back inside, she found Lucas stroking Saul on the living room carpet. The dog seemed more attentive than ever, as if he also knew something was about to happen. Later that night, Laura locked all the doors and windows, her heart squeezed. She felt that this was just the calm before a storm. As she looked at Lucas asleep, cuddled up to Saul, she muttered to herself, "Whatever comes, we're ready to fight for you, Saul." In the darkness of the house, the Labrador opened his eyes, as if he had understood every word. It was just after midnight when Laura was awoken by a muffled sound. At first, she thought it was the wind or some noise coming from outside, but the sound was repeated, louder and closer. Something was wrong. She got up quickly and, as she passed through the corridor, she saw Sewell standing in front of the living room door, as still as a statue. His eyes glowed in the dark, fixed on the doorway. He let out a low growl, alerting Laura. "Sewell, what is it?" he whispered, approaching slowly. Before she could understand, the sound of something scraping against the lock echoed through the house. Someone was trying to get in. Laura ran to Lucas's room. The boy was sleeping soundly, with an arm around Saul, who had accompanied him before getting up to investigate. Laura gently rocked her son, trying not to alarm him. "Lucas, wake up. I need you to be very quiet, okay? Just stay here with Saul," she murmured, trying to keep calm. Saul, however, was no longer in the room. He had moved back to the living room door. From his post, he let out another growl, this time louder. The sound was enough to interrupt the movements outside. All was silent for a few seconds, until someone tried to turn the handle. Sewell exploded into a powerful bark, followed by frantic scratching at the door. Laura could hear hurried footsteps outside, moving away. Her heart racing, she immediately called the police, describing what had happened. Despite her attempt to reassure Lucas, he heard her on the phone and realized that something was wrong. "It was because of the sun, wasn't it? They want to take him away," she whispered, hugging the dog tightly. Laura hugged him back, struggling to hold back the tears. "They won't take him, my love. I promise." When the police arrived, they checked the area around the house. They found footprints near the living room window and a wire left on the floor near the door. They confirmed that someone had tried to break in. "It looks like it was a small group, maybe just 2 people," said one of the police officers. "But the dog's behavior may have saved you." Laura felt a chill when she heard that. As she thanked the officers, she began to wonder, why was Sewell so important to those men? The next morning, Laura decided to act. She took Sewell to the local vet, where he could be examined in detail. As they waited in the room, Sewell seemed calm, but Laura was uneasy. "Do you think something about him might be special?" she asked the vet, while the man scanned the dog's side. "How special?" asked the vet, distracted until the device beeped. "Oh, he's got a microchip," he said, surprised. Laura stood still. "Is that common?" she asked, her voice low. "Yes. Breed dogs usually have chips to make identification easier. Let's see what appears here." The vet typed a code into the computer, and Laura watched as information began to appear on the screen. But instead of a simple registration, what appeared confused her. The microchip didn't bear the name of an ordinary owner. Instead, there was a reference to an organization called Canistech, along with a serial number. "What's that?" Laura asked. The vet narrowed his eyes, clearly puzzled. "Canistech. This is no ordinary clinic. This seems to be related to some kind of training or research program. I'll need to investigate further." Laura felt her stomach turn. She took Sewell and returned home with more questions than answers. She felt that there was much more to the story of the dog that had appeared on her doorstep than she had imagined. That evening, while Lucas was playing with Saul in the yard, Laura received a call from the vet. "Laura, I've done some research. Canistech is a company known for developing advanced training programs for dogs. They used to work with working dogs, as guides for the blind or even in security. But there are rumors that they were involved in experiments to improve the skills of these dogs," he explained, with a cautious tone. "Experiments? What kind of experiments?" Laura asked, feeling a chill. "Improving intelligence, obedience, even protective instincts? It seems that your dog could be one of those specimens. And if he is, I wouldn't be surprised if he was considered valuable to the wrong people." Laura hung up the phone and looked at Saul, who was lying next to Lucas, attentive as ever. She felt a mixture of fear and gratitude. Fear, because she now understood how much Sewell was coveted. Gratitude, because he knew that this dog was there to protect his family, no matter what the cost. Sewell wasn't just a pet, he was a guardian, and Laura was willing to fight for him. The days following the attempted break-in were tense. Laura reinforced the locks on the doors, installed security cameras, and watched every move around the house. Sewell remained vigilant, more attentive than ever, as if he knew that the danger had not yet passed. Lucas, although he could sense his mother's tension, trusted the dog blindly. Sewell was his fortress, his steadfast companion. Laura, however, knew that the threat was real, and she couldn't rely on luck alone. In the early hours of a Friday morning, the silence was broken again, this time more aggressively. The sound of breaking glass echoed through the house, followed by hurried footsteps inside. Laura awoke with a start, her heart racing. Sewell was already at work. His powerful bark reverberated through the house as he ran towards the noise. Laura, trembling, locked the door to Lucas's room and whispered to her son, "Stay here, Lucas. Don't open the door until I come back, okay?" "No, Mom. Please, don't go," Lucas begged, clinging to her. "I'll be fine. Sewell is looking after us," she said, trying to sound confident, even though she was terrified. As she left the room, Laura saw two silhouettes in the corridor. Hooded men in dark clothes were searching the house. One of them was carrying a flashlight, and the other was holding something that looked like an iron bar. "Freeze! Dog!" shouted one of them, as he tried to scare Saul away, who was advancing on them with his teeth bared. But Sewell didn't back down. He jumped on the man with the lantern, knocking him to the ground. The other man tried to hit him with the iron bar, but Sewell dodged nimbly, letting out a ferocious growl. Laura took advantage of the confusion to grab her phone and call the police. While she was explaining the situation, she heard screams and the sound of things being knocked over in the living room. Sewell was fighting to protect his family. When Laura returned to the hallway, she saw Sewell chasing the two intruders who were now running towards the front door. One of them stumbled, and Sewell grabbed his leg, pinning him down. The other ran off, disappearing into the darkness. The police arrived minutes later and arrested the man Saul had knocked down. He was scared, with bite marks on his pants. "It seems this dog is smarter than we thought," commented one of the officers, as he handcuffed the intruder. Laura held Lucas in her arms as the officers finished searching the house. Although the threat had been contained that night, she knew it was only the beginning. If the men were willing to break into her house, the situation was much more dangerous than she had imagined. The next morning, Laura went to the vet again, this time accompanied by a policeman. The conversation with the specialist was even more revealing. "I did some more research into Canistech," the vet began. "There are rumors that they were developing genetically enhanced dogs. This goes beyond advanced training. They were trying to create dogs with faster reflexes, sharper protective instincts, and almost human intelligence." Laura looked at Saul, who was lying next to Lucas, observing everything with an almost supernatural calm. "Are you saying that Sewell could be the fruit of some kind of experiment?" Laura asked, incredulous. "It's a possibility. If so, that would explain why he's so valuable. He's not just an ordinary dog. He's one of a kind," explained the vet. The policeman nodded thoughtfully. "If that's true, it makes sense that those men are so determined to get him. He could be worth a lot of money on the black market." Laura felt a knot in her stomach. Sewell was more than just a guardian or companion. He was, in fact, special, and that put him in constant danger. That evening, Laura decided to talk to Lucas. They sat on the sofa with Saul between them, the dog's head resting on the boy's lap. "Lucas, we need to talk about Saul," Laura began, trying to find the right words. "He's very special, and that's why some people want to take him away." Lucas squeezed Saul's collar, his eyes filling with tears. "But he's ours, Mom. He chose me. No one can take him away," he protested. "I know, my love, and that's why we're going to protect him. But we have to be careful. We can't trust just anyone, and we always have to be on our guard." Saul raised his head, as if he understood what was being said. He licked Lucas's hand, and Lucas hugged him back. "We'll take care of you, Saul, I promise," said Lucas, determined. As Laura locked up the house that night, She knew that the challenge ahead would be even greater. The men would be back. She was sure of that. But what they didn't know was that Sul wasn't just a prize to be captured. He was a force that no one could underestimate. And Laura was ready to face anything to protect her family and the dog that was now part of her. The silence of the small town was broken only by Laura's steady footsteps as she entered the office of a well-known local journalist, Ricardo Mendonça. He was an experienced man with a reputation for giving voice to stories involving injustices and dangers ignored by the authorities. Laura was clutching a folder containing documents and notes on everything that had happened up to that point. She was nervous, but determined. Sul followed her closely, calm and attentive as always. "Laura, right?" Ricardo asked, holding out his hand to greet her. "I hear you have something important to share." "More than important, it's urgent," Laura replied as she sat down, "and I need your help." She began to tell the whole story, from Sol's unexpected arrival to the invasions and the discoveries about Canistech. Ricardo listened attentively, taking notes and analyzing the documents Laura had handed him. "If all this is true, you're dealing with something bigger than you realize," he said, looking at Laura over his glasses. "This information needs to be made public, but it could be risky. Are you willing to go through with it?" Laura looked at Sol, who was resting next to her chair, and then thought of Lucas. There was no doubt in her heart. "Yes, I'll do whatever it takes to protect my family and Sol." 2 days later, the story was on the front page of the local newspaper and circulating on social media. Ricardo's article was clear and impactful. The protective Labrador, the truth behind the dog who defied criminals. The text explained Sol's involvement in an alleged experimental program and the attacks that Laura and her family had suffered. Photos of Sol, vigilant alongside Lucas, and of Laura reinforced the human and emotional tone of the story. The repercussions were immediate. The local community showed solidarity, offering help and reinforcing the security of Laura's home. Animal protection organizations also mobilized, promising legal support and assistance to protect Sol. More importantly, the exposé brought the attention of bigger authorities. Representatives from a national animal protection NGO visited Laura, offering protection and resources to investigate Canistech. Despite this, the exposé also attracted the darker side of the situation. The night after the publication, Laura received an anonymous phone call. "You made a big mistake exposing this lady. Now things are going to get harder for you," said a male voice, before abruptly hanging up. Laura tried to stay calm, but she knew the battle was far from over. That same week, a lawyer appointed by the NGO arrived at Laura's house. His name was Rafael Borges, a young man with a confident attitude. "Laura, I've read all about the case, and I believe we have a solid basis for ensuring that Sol remains with her family. But we also need to act more firmly against those who threaten you." "And how can we do that?" Laura asked, holding a cup of coffee with trembling hands. "The first step is to formalize Sol's status as a member of the family. We will argue that he is indispensable for Lucas' emotional and psychological well-being. In addition, we'll put pressure on the authorities to investigate Canistech and the invaders." Laura nodded, feeling a little more confident. Rafael turned to Lucas, who was sitting next to Sul. "Lucas, I want you to know that no one can take Sul away from you. He's your friend, and we're going to fight for him together, right?" Lucas smiled shyly, stroking the Labrador's head. "That's right. He's my best friend." Meanwhile, Ricardo continued to dig up information about Canistech. He discovered that the company had been closed down years ago, but its experiments remained a secret. What's more, former employees revealed that some dogs, like Sol, were considered lost projects, animals that had escaped or been sold illegally. It seems that Sol is not just a protector. He's the last of his kind, Ricardo told Laura during a visit. The information increased the tension. If Sol was so rare, the invaders wouldn't give up easily. Over the next few days, Laura's house became a symbol of resistance. Neighbors offered to watch the area, and anonymous donations poured in to help with security costs. The exposure, although risky, brought a sense of community that Laura had never felt before, but she knew it wasn't enough. Sewell needed more than solidarity. He needed legal and physical protection. And while Lucas played in the yard with Sewell, Laura, Raphael, and Ricardo prepared themselves for the next step, facing the final dangers that were sure to come. However, none of them could have predicted how intense the next 24 hours would be. The enemy was closer than they imagined. The tension in Laura's house was palpable. Despite community support and heightened security measures, Laura couldn't shake the feeling that something terrible was about to happen, and she was right. It was dawn when Sewell started growling. He was lying next to Lucas, bed, but when he heard a strange sound coming from the yard, he jumped up and went to the door. Laura, who had been sleeping lightly since the last events, woke up immediately at the sound of the growling. She ran to the window and saw shadows moving in the yard. The glow of flashlights cut through the darkness, briefly illuminating the masked faces of 4 men. They were armed and seemed much more prepared than the previous invaders. "Lucas, wake up," whispered Laura, shaking her son. "We need to hide now." "What's going on, Mom?" Lucas asked, frightened. "We don't have time to explain. Stay with Saul and don't leave the room, no matter what happens." Lucas obeyed, holding Saul's collar tightly. The dog seemed to understand the gravity of the situation, positioning himself between Lucas and the door, alert to any movement. As Laura picked up her phone to call the police, she heard the sound of a window being smashed. The men were entering the house. She managed to whisper the location to the police before hearing heavy footsteps in the hallway. "Let's get the dog and get out fast," said a gruff male voice. Laura hid behind the door, her heart racing. When one of the men entered the room, she was in E, holding a flashlight and a gun. She gathered all her courage and struck a blow with a lamp she was holding. The intruder stumbled backwards in surprise, but quickly regained his balance and stepped forward to grab her. At that moment, Sewell sprang into action. He jumped on the man, knocking him to the ground with force. The intruder tried to defend himself, but Sewell bit his arm, immobilizing him. "Get off, you damn dog!" shouted the man, but Sewell didn't back down. The screams alerted the other invaders, who rushed to the scene. One of them pulled out a tranquilizer gun and pointed it at Sewell. "No!" shouted Lucas, appearing in the bedroom doorway. The noise distracted the man for a moment, but it was enough for Sewell to jump up and knock him down. Laura pulled Lucas back, protecting him as the chaos unfolded. The other 2 invaders tried to surround Saul, but the dog was fast, agile, and incredibly strategic. He growled and attacked at unexpected angles, forcing them to retreat. Suddenly, red and blue police lights illuminated the front of the house. Sirens cut through the early morning silence, and the men panicked. "Let's go!" shouted one of them. 2 managed to escape through the back door, but the other 2 were immobilized by the police who quickly arrived on the scene. Saul, covered in dust and with small cuts in his hair, stayed by Laura and Lucas' side, protecting them until the end. Inside the house, the police searched the arrested men and found more details about the operation. Documents and messages on the invaders' cell phones indicated that they were working for an organization that wanted to capture Saul for its commercial and scientific value. "These men weren't acting alone," said the police chief. "This is bigger than we thought. We're going to investigate thoroughly." Laura, still trembling, held Lucas and looked at Saul, who was sitting calmly, panting but alert. He had once again saved his family. "You're our hero, Saul," said Lucas, hugging the dog tightly. Saul licked the boy's face, as if to say that he was only doing what he had to. That morning, as the sun rose after a tumultuous night, Laura knew that her fight was far from over. But she also knew that she had the strength of a community, the support of dedicated professionals, and, above all, the unconditional love of an extraordinary dog. The next step would be to ensure that Sewell was completely protected, and Laura was more determined than ever to fight for this. The days following the attack were intense. News of the raid quickly spread, further fueling public interest in Laura, Lucas, and Saul's story. Community support increased, as did the pressure on the authorities to guarantee the family's safety and thoroughly investigate the organization behind Sol's attempted capture. Rafael Borges, the lawyer, worked tirelessly to prepare a legal petition that would not only guarantee Sol's stay with his family, but also legally protect him from future claims. The central argument was clear. Sol was not just a pet, but an indispensable part of Lucas' life and essential to his emotional well-being. On the day of the hearing, Laura and Lucas sat in the small courtroom, accompanied by Rafael and supported by neighbors and friends who crowded the benches. Lucas held Sol's collar tightly, nervous but determined. The opposing lawyer, hired by a representative of Sol's alleged original owner, argued that the dog had been lost and should therefore be returned to its rightful owner. The dog was identified as part of a program developed by Canistech, and it represents a valuable asset, said the lawyer, completely ignoring the emotional bond between Lucas and Sol. Rafael stood up calmly, adjusting his tie before speaking. Your Honor, we're not just talking about property here. Sol is not a commodity, but a living being who has established an indisputable connection with this family, especially with Lucas. He pointed to the boy, who looked at the judge with hope. This dog not only helped Lucas overcome the trauma of an accident that took his sight, but also saved his life on multiple occasions. Rafael presented evidence, photos, videos of Lucas playing with Sol, and even accounts from neighbors who had witnessed the dog's transformative impact on the family's life. Taking Sol away from Lucas would not only be cruel, but harmful to his mental and emotional health, Rafael concluded. The judge, an elderly man with a stern countenance, watched both sides carefully before asking Lucas to speak. The boy nervously held Sol tightly and took a step forward. Your Honor, Sol is my best friend. He's not just a dog. He helped me smile again and not be afraid anymore. Please don't take him away from me. The silence in the room was absolute. Lucas' words touched everyone, including the judge, who looked at the boy for a long moment before announcing his decision. The bond between Lucas and Sol is clear and unquestionable. I therefore decide that Sol should remain in the care of Lucas and his mother. Furthermore, I grant official custody of Sol to the family, guaranteeing legal protection against any future attempts to remove her. The room erupted in applause. Laura hugged Lucas, while Sol, as if he knew something important had happened, barked excitedly, wagging his tail vigorously. Over the next few days, Sol became more than a local hero. His story was widely covered in the national press, inspiring thousands of people. He was officially recognized as a member of Laura and Lucas' family, and his protection was reinforced by laws that prevented any future legal action against them. A week later, Laura organized a small gathering at her home to thank the community and everyone who had supported them. While the guests chatted and enjoyed the food, Lucas and Sol were in the backyard, laughing and joking as usual. Ricardo Mendonça, the journalist, approached Laura. You know, Laura, it's not just Sol who is special. Your determination to protect him and his family has inspired many people. I think you're a symbol of how love can overcome any obstacle. Laura smiled, looking at Lucas and Sol. I just did what any mother would do. I can't imagine our life without him. Ricardo nodded, touched. That night, before going to sleep, Lucas held Sol and whispered, "We did it, buddy. You'll stay with me forever." Sol licked Lucas' face and lay down next to him with a contented sigh. For the first time in months, Laura felt that the fight was finally coming to an end. They were safe. The morning sun streamed in through Lucas' bedroom window, gently illuminating the peaceful scene. The boy was cuddled up to Sol, who was sleeping peacefully beside him, life in Laura and Lucas. Small house seemed to have finally returned to normal. Laura was in the kitchen, preparing breakfast, when Lucas walked in with Sol right behind him. He had a smile on his face that Laura hadn't seen since before the accident. "Good morning, Mom. Sol's hungry. He's already come to wake me up," said Lucas, laughing. Laura smiled as she prepared a bowl of food for the dog. "He knows he's a priority here, doesn't he?" she replied, jokingly. Lucas sat at the table, stroking Saul while the dog ate. The light and relaxed atmosphere was something Laura valued more than ever. Every moment felt like a gift. A few days later, Lucas returned to school, something he had decided with Saul's help and Laura's constant support. With his faithful companion by his side, the boy walked through the school gate, feeling more confident than ever. His classmates, who had previously felt sorry for Lucas, now looked at him with admiration. Saul was the center of attention, but the boy knew that the real victory was his. He had overcome his fear and found courage in his bond with the dog. During the break, a girl called Julia approached Lucas. "Hi, Lucas. Can I stroke the son?" she asked shyly. "Of course. He loves a cuddle," Lucas replied proudly. While Julia was stroking the dog, Lucas started talking to her. For the first time in a long time, he felt part of the group again. That afternoon, when he got home, Lucas excitedly ran up to Laura. "Mom, everyone loved the son, and the teacher said that I can take him out from time to time to help other pupils feel more confident too." Laura felt her heart fill with pride. "That's wonderful, my love. Saul has not only changed our lives, but he's helping other people too." The months passed, and the family was finally able to establish a peaceful routine. Saul was still Lucas' tireless guardian, but now he seemed relaxed, as if he knew that the worst was behind him. Evenings were filled with playing in the yard and conversations around the dinner table. Lucas laughed more, asked questions about the world, and even started learning Braille, inspired by the idea that he could achieve much more than he had imagined. Laura, for her part, began attending talks organized by animal protection NGOs, sharing Saul's story and how he had transformed her family. One day, while they were walking through the town square, a woman approached them. She was holding a child by the hand and looked at Saul with emotional eyes. "This is the famous Saul, isn't it?" she asked, smiling. Laura nodded in surprise. "I want to thank you. Saul's story inspired me to adopt a dog for my son, who also went through a trauma. Now he's happier and more confident." Laura smiled, touched by the words. "It's amazing how an animal can change a family's life so much, isn't it?" The woman nodded, squeezing her son's hand. As they walked away, Laura looked at Lucas and Saul. "You have no idea how many lives you are changing together." Lucas hugged Saul, who wagged his tail in response. For the boy, Saul's love and friendship were more than enough. But for Laura, it was clear that they were destined for something even greater. That night, while Lucas slept cuddled up to Saul, Laura sat on the sofa and looked at the full moon through the window. She felt grateful for everything they had overcome. "You're not just a dog, Saul. You're part of us. A miracle that came along at just the right time," she whispered. And in the silence of that quiet night, Laura felt that peace had finally found its home.